Microsoft's Project Scorpio is finally here. And it's actually called, well, it's not called Project Scorpio anymore, it's actually called the Xbox One X. So this is a really interesting device. It's interesting because one, it's the most powerful console in the world. Two, it's not just really powerful, but according to Microsoft, it competes with high-end gaming PCs when it comes to raw performance, which is also really, really impressive. And three, this is not the equivalent to the PlayStation 4 Pro. So this is not Microsoft's answer to the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is the next Xbox One. So this is, so to say, the Xbox One 2. So welcome to the Zone of Tech. I'm Daniel, and here's not 5, not 10, but actually 15 things you need to know about the Xbox One X. So yeah, it's a really interesting device. So grab some popcorn and enjoy. Okay, so number one, the Xbox One X is the next generation Xbox console. So it's not called the Xbox One 2, it's called the Xbox One X. Apparently Microsoft wanted to call it the Xbox One S because they had the Scorpio name, but S was already taken by the Xbox One S. So in the end, they decided to call it the Xbox One X because they wanted to keep the same naming scheme as on the Xbox One. And Microsoft has officially confirmed that this is not Microsoft's response, Microsoft's answer to the PlayStation 4 Pro. They actually compared the PlayStation 4 Pro to the Xbox One S, which is a bit ridiculous because only HDR is the only thing that they have in common. The PlayStation 4 Pro is much more powerful than the Xbox One S, but at the same time, the Xbox One X is even more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro. So yeah, this is the next generation Xbox console. You can call it the Xbox One 2 or the Xbox 2. If you wish. Now, number two is the controller. So usually when Microsoft releases a new console, such as the Xbox One X, it also comes with a redesigned controller. Now, unfortunately, it's still the exact same controller that you get with something like an Xbox One or an Xbox One S. So no controller changes at all. So this also means that it still doesn't have an integrated battery. So you still have to buy your own batteries, which in the end has a couple of advantages and disadvantages. So for example, if you take the PlayStation 4 controller, that one lasts for about 4 hours of usage, obviously depending on the game, but usually it's about 4 hours. The Xbox One controller lasts for so much longer, but then again, you do have to buy your own batteries. So which one do you actually prefer? Buying your own batteries and the battery lasting longer, or shorter battery life, but the ability to charge the controller whenever you wish? Let me know in the comments which one do you think is a better option for you. But the good news is that the Xbox One Elite controller is still supported. So if you want to use that with the Xbox One X, you can still do that. Then number three, the Xbox One X is a true 4K console. So what exactly do I mean by true 4K console? Well, the games are actually being run in true 4K resolution. So that's 3840 by 2160. Now on the PlayStation 4 Pro, most games are actually being run in 1440p. So that's 2K resolution. And then it's being upscaled to 4K using a checkerboarding technique. So it's not true 4K. So it's a bit softer than 4K. But yeah, Xbox One X runs all the games in true 4K, so it's going to look much sharper than the same game on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, there are a couple of PlayStation 4 Pro games that do run in full 4K, so games such as The Last of Us or Wipeout, the Omega Collection, so those games actually run in 4K, in full 4K, even at 60 frames per second, but those are a couple of exceptions because they're not so demanding games. Like Wipeout is a remaster of the PlayStation 3 game, and same goes for Last of Us. It's a remaster of the PS3 game, so they're not that demanding. Number four, speaking of 4K, the Xbox One X can actually do 4K, true 4K at 60 frames per second in some cases. Now, when Microsoft talked about the Project Scorpio first, they actually said 4K at 60 frames per second all the time, which never ended happening. So some of the games such as Forza 7, which Microsoft did show at the E3, that one actually runs at 4K 60. So really, really impressive considering how demanding, I would say, this game is. So just to give you an idea when it comes to performance, PlayStation 4 Pro can run the latest games in 4K at 30 frames per second, but it's not true 4K, it's 1440p upscaled using checkerboarding. And the Xbox One X can actually do 4K even at 60 in some cases. And PlayStation 4 Pro can do 4K at 60, but only when you take into consideration some PS3 games which have been remastered. So the performance difference is just huge. Now, speaking of performance, how powerful is the Xbox One X? Well, just to give you an idea, performance when it comes to GPUs, it's a bit more difficult to measure because you have quite a lot of really low power processors which can handle really complex calculations at the same time. It's like you're on a highway and you have, let's say, 2000 motorbikes that are running compared to on a highway, which only has 4 supercars running. That would be the processor. The performance when it comes to GPUs is usually measured by how many floating point operations they can do per second. So the Xbox One X actually has 6 teraflops of compute power. Is that a lot? That's a lot. So just to give you an idea, the Xbox One, the original Xbox One, that one had 1.3 teraflops. So it's almost 6 times more powerful than the Xbox One. So it's not twice more powerful, not 3 times, but 6 times more powerful than the Xbox One. Just let that sink in a bit. Now the PlayStation 4 had 1.8 teraflops and the PlayStation 4 Pro has 4.2 teraflops. So even much more powerful than even the PlayStation 4 Pro. Okay, so when it comes to the compute power of the graphics card, what PC graphics card is this comparable with when it comes to teraflops at least? Well, that would actually be the GTX 1070 that actually has 6.5 teraflops, so it's really close to the 1070 when it comes to raw GPU performance. Now, obviously this is not the only factor when it comes to the graphics quality, but yeah, still really impressive to see what the Xbox One X is capable of. Now, besides this number of floating point operations per second, another factor that influences the performance of a GPU is the memory bandwidth. And the Xbox One S has a memory bandwidth of 326 gigabytes per second. That's insane. Just to give you an idea of how insane that is, the top of the line iMac that you can buy right now comes with the Radeon Pro 580 graphics. That one comes with 5.5 teraflops and also 217 gigabytes per second bandwidth. So pretty big difference. Okay, so that was the Radeon Pro 580. So what about the Radeon RX 580, so the desktop version? Well, that one comes with 6.2 teraflops and 256 gigabytes bandwidth. So again, the Xbox One wins when it comes to the memory bandwidth. So just to give you a better perspective, the NVIDIA GTX 1080 has 320 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, so it's even higher than the GTX 1080. Now, obviously, it's not more powerful than the GTX 1080 overall, but basically, the memory bandwidth influences how fast the GPU can draw the images that you see on the screen. So not only how fast, but also the resolution that they can draw. So what I'm saying is that the GPU inside the Xbox One X is better when it comes to handling 4K games than even the GTX 1080, which is really, really impressive. Keep in mind that the newest games, especially the exclusives, are going to be optimized to take full advantage of that power compared to some games on PC, which are not fully optimized to take full advantage of the power inside something like a GTX 1080. So yeah, the graphics are going to look insane on this thing. One more thing that I want to mention when it comes to the performance of the Xbox One X, it actually comes with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. GDDR5 memory, 12 gigabytes. Again, let that sink in. 12 gigabytes GDDR5. Now, 9 gigabytes according to Microsoft are going to be used just for games, and then 3 gigabytes are going to be used as RAM memory for the system. So yeah, basically 9 gigabytes of GDDR5 VRAM. Next up, with all this performance, you would expect the Xbox One X to be huge. Because, well, the original Xbox was huge. The Xbox One S is pretty small, but you obviously would expect this to be at least as large as the original Xbox. In fact, it's even smaller than the Xbox One S. So this is the smallest console that Microsoft ever made. And it's not just that, it's significantly smaller than the PlayStation 4 Pro and much, much more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro. And I'm not exactly sure how many of you know this, but the Xbox One X also comes with a faster hard drive. Now, I'm not sure if this is an SSH, so if it's a hybrid, or if it's just a 7200 RPM hard drive. It's most likely a 7200 RPM hard drive. So anyway, games will load faster than on the original Xbox or the Xbox One S or the PlayStation 4 or the PS4 Pro. It's a 1 terabyte hard drive, which you can always replace with an SSD if you really wish, if you really want to get even better performance. But yeah, pretty cool to see that Microsoft has increased the speed of the hard drive inside the Xbox One X. Then number 10, the Xbox One X also comes with something really, really interesting, and that's something that you only see in high-end gaming PCs. So liquid cooling. Well, in a way, it's not true liquid cooling, but in a way it is. So it uses something called a vapor chamber. So what's a vapor chamber? Well, it's a sealed chamber, it's a vacuum chamber in which you have a coolant, which is usually deionized water. Now that water evaporates because of the heat that the processor and the GPU generate, and that vapor of the water rises. And then you also have another chamber which has a lower pressure. It causes the temperature to decrease, which turns it back into water, and yeah, basically the whole cycle repeats all over again. So this is how it works. It's only a small amount of coolant or deionized water. It's not true liquid cooling because you don't have a pump pumping water or anything like that, but it's a vapor chamber, so it's kind of like in between. And this is something that you do currently see on graphics cards such as the NVIDIA 1080. So really, really impressive to see it in a console. Who would have thought? In a console. Number 11, this is a pretty funny one. So the Xbox One X supports 4K HDR Blu-rays, which the PS4 Pro doesn't. But here's the interesting thing. Blu-ray was invented by Sony, and Sony holds all the rights to Blu-ray. So they actually licensed the Blu-ray player to Microsoft, but they haven't included their own Blu-ray player in the PlayStation 4 Pro, which doesn't really make that much sense. This is the same thing as Microsoft starting to sell the next-gen iPhone ahead of Apple. So really weird. Now you probably think that the Xbox One X is only worth it if you have a 4K TV or a 4K monitor. Well, not really. It's also worth it if you have a 1080p monitor or a 1080p TV. So same as with the PlayStation 4 Pro, the Xbox One X is going to run all games in 4K, and it's going to downscale the games in 1080p. So the games are still going to look much better and much sharper even on 1080p displays. And then obviously, if you don't count the resolution, the graphics are still going to be much better. So the lighting, the shadows, the detail, and everything is going to be much better on the Xbox One X. And next up, this is a pretty interesting one. So all games that you have on the Xbox One are still going to work on the Xbox One X, even though this is an entirely new console. So this is like the Xbox 2 or the Xbox One 2. But all the games are still going to work from the Xbox One, and even the Xbox 360 games are still going to work, and even some original Xbox games are going to work. So full backwards compatible with the previous Xboxes. Really, really impressive. Really wish that this is going to happen with the PlayStation 5 as well. Backwards compatible with the PS4 and maybe even the PS3, even though I don't think so, but PS4 most likely. Number 14, even though it has been announced, it hasn't been released yet. So it's going to be released in November 2017. So maybe by the time you're watching this video, it's already out. But yeah, this was just the official unveil at E3. It's only going to officially launch in November. And finally, I want to talk about the price. So you probably expected the Xbox One X to be more expensive than the Xbox One, and it actually is, but not by as much as you would expect it to be. So it's going to cost $500 or 450 or 480 pounds in the UK. So that's about $100 or 100 pounds more expensive than the PS4 Pro, but the performance gain is so much higher than a PS4 Pro. Now, I do wish that we did get a new controller, which unfortunately we didn't. But overall, I would say that it's worth it. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have any amazing exclusives for the Xbox One X. There's not going to be any exclusive just for the Xbox One X, so all games will be developed same as with the PS4 Pro and the PS4 for the Xbox One, and they will also work on the S and the X. The only difference is that they will look so much better on the X. So there you go, 15 things you need to know about the Xbox One X. Now, if you want to see more videos like this one, feel free to subscribe, and also feel free to turn on notifications on my channel by simply tapping on that bell icon so that you're notified as soon as I upload a brand new epic video. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the Xbox One X at the moment? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's not worth it? Are you going to upgrade if you have something like an Xbox One S? And the big question, if you have a PS4 Pro, are you getting the Xbox One X? Do you think it's worth it? I would say it is, but obviously depends on what games you want to play. If you want to play games such as Horizon or the new Spider-Man, those are exclusives to the PlayStation 4 Pro and PS4. Other than that, if you found this video useful, feel free to give it a like to let me know. And also let me know in the comments if you're epic enough to make it until the end of this video by saying I was epic enough to make it until the end of this video. But yeah, this was pretty much it for now, so thank you for watching until the end. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Son of Tech, signing out. Cheers.